Okay, I need to pause for a second because something just came through that I genuinely wasn't expecting. And I don't say that lightly. I say it because there's a specific quality to what I'm feeling right now that is different from a typical reading, different in a way I want to try to describe accurately rather than just dramatically. When I connected with your energy today, there was this immediate sense of depth, like dropping something into water and not hearing it hit the bottom. And that's interesting because usually when I tune in, there's a landing, a floor, a place where the energy settles and I can start to get my bearings with you today. That floor just kept going. Give me a second with this because I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. What I'm picking up is a connection between you and another person that has layers to it that go beyond what either of you can probably fully explain. And I don't mean that in a mystical, hand wavy kind of way. I mean it in the very practical sense that when you try to account for why this person matters to you as much as they do, the reasons you can put into words don't quite add up to the feeling. There's more feeling than there is explanation. And that gap, that excess of feeling over reason, is what I'm sitting with right now. Because that gap is information, it's telling you something. Let me try to describe what a deep spiritual connection actually feels like from the inside, because I think the phrase gets used so often that it loses its meaning, and I want to restore some specificity to it for you. A connection like this doesn't feel like fireworks necessarily. It doesn't always feel dramatic or overwhelming or obvious. Sometimes it feels like the opposite of that. It feels like quiet, like a particular quality of ease that you don't have with most people. Like you don't have to perform being yourself. Like something in you settles when this person is around rather than activating. And alongside that ease, there's usually something else, a kind of recognition that preceded logic, like you knew something about this person before you had enough information to justify the knowing. Like meeting them felt less like an introduction and more like a continuation of something. Has that been your experience? Because that's what I'm feeling in your energy. That quality of this being something that was already in motion before it consciously began. Tell me in the comments if that resonates. Now, let me talk about what makes this specific. What came through in this reading that I genuinely haven't encountered in quite this form before? It's the quality of the mutual recognition. Most of the time when I read for someone about a connection that matters to them, I feel the depth on one side clearly, and then I sort of reach toward the other person's energy to see what's there. There's usually some asymmetry, some difference in how clearly each person is experiencing the connection or what they're doing with what they feel. With you today, I reached toward this other person's energy, and what I found was, okay, so this is the part that surprised me. What I found was that they're already reaching back. Like I extended my hand and they were already extending theirs, already oriented toward you, already carrying this in a way that mirrors how you're carrying it. And that kind of perfect mirroring is genuinely unusual because most connections have some lag, some difference in timing or intensity or readiness. This one doesn't. Or if it does, the gap is so small I can barely find it. That's what I've never seen before in quite this way. Not the connection itself, but the synchrony of it. Both of you at the same depth at the same time. I want to be careful here because I don't want to tell you something that sounds beautiful but doesn't actually help you navigate what's in front of you. So let me try to ground this in something practical. What does it mean in real terms that this is a deep spiritual connection? What does it actually change about your situation? I think the most useful thing it changes is this: it takes the question of whether the connection is real off the table, because that's probably been the question underneath everything. Is this actually something, or am I projecting? Is this genuinely mutual, or am I reading signals that aren't there? Is the depth I feel real, or is it something I've constructed because I want it to be real? The depth is real, the mutuality is real. That's not something you constructed, that's something that exists between you. The uncertainty you've been carrying hasn't been uncertainty about whether the connection is real. It's been uncertainty about what to do with something real. And that's a different problem, a much more workable problem. Um, Let me talk about this other person, about what I feel when I really sit with their energy in relation to yours. There's something about how they experience you that I want to try to describe, because I think hearing it might shift something for you. When you're in their awareness, and you're in their awareness more than you probably know, something happens in them that doesn't happen with other people. A particular quality of attention activates, not the polite attention of someone being present in a conversation. Something more involuntary than that. Like you pull their focus without trying to, like something in their system orients towards you before they've consciously decided to pay attention. And this has been going on for a while, long enough that they've stopped being surprised by it, long enough that your presence in their mind has become something they've had to make a kind of accommodation for, because you don't stay in the background the way other people do. You keep coming forward, not aggressively, just persistently. And there's something they've been trying to understand about this connection, something they keep turning over, because it doesn't fit neatly into the categories they have for how relationships work. It's not quite friendship the way they understand friendship. It's not quite something else either. It's its own thing. And they're not sure what to do with something that doesn't fit the categories. That uncertainty, that not quite knowing what to call this, is part of why nothing has been explicitly said yet. Not because the feeling isn't there, because the feeling is too unusual to approach through the normal channels. Does that resonate? Has there been something between you that seems to resist easy categorization? Let me know. Here's what I want to say about the spiritual dimension of this, because I think it's real and worth addressing directly rather than just gesturing at it. Some connections serve a specific purpose in your life, not in a fated, you had no choice kind of way, but in the sense that certain people arrive at certain moments in a way that is too precisely calibrated to be purely accidental. This person arrived in your life at a moment when you needed something, maybe something you weren't consciously aware you needed, and what you offered them in return was also something they needed, something that wasn't available anywhere else in quite that form. That's what makes it spiritual in the truest sense, not supernatural, just specifically purposeful, in a way that operates at a level deeper than the ordinary logic of how people meet and why they matter to each other. And connections like this have a particular quality of longevity to them, not because they're easy or uncomplicated, but because they're rooted in something real enough to sustain difficulty, to survive the periods where things don't move the way you want them to remain intact through the uncertainty and the waiting and the not quite yet. What you have with this person is that kind of rooted, and roots don't wash away. Let me address something practical, because I feel like you've been sitting with the spiritual weight of this connection for a while, and what you might actually need right now is something more concrete. What do you do with this? How do you move forward with something that operates at this level? The honest answer is that you don't force it. Connections this deep have their own timing, their own way of unfolding that doesn't respond well to being pushed. The pushing actually interferes with the natural movement. It adds noise to something that communicates best in quiet. What you do instead is stay available, stay genuine. Stop editing yourself so carefully when you're around them. Because part of what has kept this in the almost but not quite space is that both of you have been managing how much of the real thing shows. Being careful, being measured, keeping it inside a kind of comfortable ambiguity. And the natural next step for this connection is for that ambiguity to start resolving, not through a big conversation necessarily, through the accumulation of unguarded moments. Moments where the management slips a little and something true comes through. And those moments have been building. I feel them in your energy. The moments that almost said something that came close to being undeniable. More of those are coming, and at some point, the accumulation of them is going to tip into something explicit. I want to say one more thing before I close this reading. Something that came through right at the beginning and that I've been holding on to because I wanted to build to it. When I first connected with your energy today, the thing I felt wasn't just the depth of the connection. It was something about you specifically, about the quality of person you are in relation to this connection. You've been holding this with a lot of integrity. That's the word that keeps coming up, integrity. Not trying to force it or manufacture it or turn it into something it isn't. Letting it be what it is. Sitting with the uncertainty without collapsing it into something easier. Honoring the real thing over the comfortable story. That's not nothing. That kind of integrity is actually rare. And I think this person feels it. Feels the quality of how you hold things. Feels the difference between how you are with them and how most people are with each other. And that quality, that realness, is a significant part of what makes this connection what it is. You're not imagining the depth. You're not projecting the significance. You're not inventing the feeling of being in the presence of something that doesn't come along very often. It's real. Both of you are in it. And whatever comes next, whatever form this takes as it continues to unfold, it's going to be built on something genuine enough to hold the weight of what it actually is. Trust what you've been feeling. It was never wrong. It was just waiting for the right moment to become undeniable. That moment is closer than you think.